All right, hello and welcome everyone to class for today for our Wellbeing Connection class. My name is Charlotte Scheid and I'm one of the Giant Company Dietitians, and I appreciate everybody joining me here this afternoon for a great topic, which we are going to talk all about brain boosting foods for back to school. Now, I don't know about you, but I know for myself, I can absolutely not believe it is back to school season. It's really hard to believe the summer just flew by, but right now is the perfect time to talk about those brain boosting foods, which will help not only kids, but for those of you who may be going back to college or even just working, just out of everyday life, we will want to help our brain health. So we're going to talk all about those foods that will help. But actually, the first thing I want to do before we get in to class today is I want to take a poll to see who has a family member going back to school. So let me go ahead and pull this up. You can go ahead and answer that question before we get into today's topic. So do you have a family member going back to school this year? I know for myself, I do not, but next year I will have a kindergartner. So I'll be definitely incorporating some of the tips today for that. All right, give everybody a couple seconds. All right, so go ahead and end the poll. So it looks like So, oop, there we go. So it looks like a lot, or there's about 50 of you that do, but then a lot of you who do not. So again, so if you did not have anybody going back to school, these tips today are just important also for just everyday life, especially if you want to help your brain health. So thank you everybody for answering that question. All right. So why nutrition is important for back to school and especially for kids. So a child, especially their brain is growing and changing very quickly. So there's billions of new connections or synapses. So they're forming every second in areas of learning, memory, and problem solving. And we know that nutrition and nutrients help with these connections and when the child's brain is growing and changing so quickly. So we definitely want to incorporate certain nutrients to help with that process. Also, better mood and behavior. So this is especially important if they are learning throughout the day. We want them to be in a good mood and, to feel good as well and not feel irritable or tired. And balanced eating helps us support focus and attention. So, of course, they are learning a whole bunch of stuff throughout the day. So, we want them to stay focused and have that attention. Also important to keep in mind about hydration. So hydration, and especially I think a lot of people have a hard time incorporating water or, just fluids throughout the day. We want to keep in mind that hydration keeps the brain sharp. So even mild dehydration can cause difficulty in concentrating, memory problems, and even mood changes. And I know I feel that way, especially when I don't drink water, or don't drink enough water throughout the day. So we want to help our kiddos get that hydration that they need to keep their brain sharp. So really the goal for school, we want to start the school year off right with the right nutrition and a balanced diet. So we'll be going over some recipes and products and the different nutrients to keep in mind for back to school. So before we get started with that info, I want to do some true or false to see or to test your knowledge a little bit. So our first true or false, and let me pull up this for everybody to answer, is eating eggs can help your brain focus. So true or false? And I know definitely in our house we like to eat our eggs in the morning. All right, so I'll go ahead and end this poll. So it looks like a lot of you said true, just a couple false. So let's see what the answer is. So this is true. So eating eggs can definitely help your brain focus, not just because they have protein, but it also has some other nutrients in it as well, like choline. But definitely a good source of protein in the morning and wonderful to start the day off with eggs. All right, next one. Oops, let me see if I can launch this. And let me see if I can just pull this up. Sorry about this. Just trying to pull this up, this question. Maybe I'll just, if I can see this poll now. Okay, so instead of, we won't have to, I don't know what's going on with the poll, but let's just answer it in our heads and I'll share the answer. But berries are brain boosting because they have antioxidants that protect brain cells. So this might be maybe a little bit of an easier question, but so let's see what the answer is. So this answer is true. So we know that berries have a ton of antioxidants in them, and there's so many different research studies too on blueberries being very beneficial for brain health. So berries are always a wonderful food to incorporate for to keep our brains healthy. All right, and next question. Let me just try to pull up this poll one more time. Let's see if this works. All right, so it's not working. That's okay. So the brain is 30% fat. So true or false? All right, so the answer is this is false. So the brain is actually about 60% fat. So definitely made up of a lot of different, a lot of fat. And so, but fat, well, it's something to keep in mind that fat is a key component of cell membranes in the brain. So helping the brain to work properly. So neurotransmitters, all the yeah, all the since neurotransmitters are messengers, the fat helps with to keep that healthy. So we always want to incorporate fat, which we'll be talking about in a couple slides. Always want to incorporate those healthy fats into our diet. So just a couple fun, true or false. Okay. So these are some areas to focus on for brain health and back to school. So the first one, which I'm sure a lot of you already know, but we want to incorporate protein. Not just for brain health, but just overall in general. But protein helps to build neurotransmitters, those messengers in the brain, helps to support brain growth and repair, helps to stabilize that blood sugar for learning, and also helps with attention and memory because also it helps to keep us feeling fuller longer. So it helps us, not to feel hungry and helps to keep our attention. But our protein sources are meat and poultry, eggs, dairy, legumes like lentils, beans, and chickpeas tofu. There's also pastas that are protein pastas. If you like pasta, don't necessarily eat the other protein options, but also nuts and seeds as well. And nuts and seeds can be a lot of fun to incorporate into different meals and snacks. So we mentioned about fat and the brain being composed of about 60% fat. So healthy fats and omega-3s are very beneficial for the brain. So healthy fats form the structure of brain cell membranes, keeping them flexible so they can send messages quickly. So if we're not incorporating healthy fats, our brains may be not as quick to send those messages, which we do not want. So we know that the brain is mostly made up of fat, and those omega-3 fatty acids are best for brain development because they help with memory and focus, mood, and emotional regulation as well. So our sources of omega-3 fatty acids include fatty fish like salmon, which is one of, I know, our family's favorite things to eat at dinner time. Trout, sardines, and tunas. Also, chia seeds, which can be incorporated into a lot of ways. I feel like chia seeds have become more popular too when incorporating them into like oatmeal and parfaits and that type of thing. Also, flax seeds. You want to ground the flax seeds for best absorption, but also walnuts and hemp seeds. So, a lot of different options to get omega-3 fatty acids into our diet. But also, monounsaturated fats help with blood flow throughout the brain and focus. So, these include avocados and olive oil, almonds, peanuts, and nut butters. So a lot of different ways to incorporate fats. Also to keep in mind about fiber. So fiber, and I know as Americans, we don't get enough fiber throughout the day, but we always want to keep in mind about fiber because it helps to keep our energy steady for focus. And then also to supports that gut-brain connection, which there's a lot of research on how the gut and brain are kind of connected. So we always want to keep, you know, incorporating fiber to help that connection be strong. So foods include legumes like beans and lentils, whole grains, which help to provide fiber, some fruit and vegetables, and definitely with fruits with the skin on, helps to get that fiber into our diets. Um, and then nuts and seeds. And also keep in mind too, like what we mentioned about hydration. So if you're just mildly dehydrated, this definitely slows our thinking, reduces focus, and then makes it harder to remember information as well. So our brain is definitely made up of a lot of water, so we always want to keep that hydrated to help it working properly. So when we're thinking about some areas to focus on for brain health, definitely keep these different areas in mind. So protein, healthy fats, and omega-3s, fiber, and hydration as well. So I always want to mention too, because I mentioned a little bit about regulating blood sugar levels. So we definitely want to help kids who are turning back to school or just us in general, or if we're going to college, we always want to keep our blood sugar stable. We want to prevent those mood swings and irritability because definitely if we're irritable, if we're have low blood sugar, feeling kind of sick, we're definitely not going to be able to concentrate and learn properly. So we want to regulate that blood sugar levels. So again, consuming foods that are high in fiber and protein, and then those healthy fats are going to help keep our blood sugar levels stable. So our blood sugar is not spiking and then dipping because there's doesn't make us feel good at all. So by consuming these types of food helps to slow down the release of sugar into the bloodstream, and so leading to a more stable energy and emotional levels, so helping us to feel good as we're learning. And also I mentioned about gut health. So the gut is often called the second brain, so it's a direct link to the brain via the gut-brain axis. So foods that promote a healthy gut, which I'm sure a lot of you have already heard of, but especially the gut microbiome is such a huge area of research, but definitely a lot of research showing that the gut affects the brain. So we want to keep that gut microbiome healthy so that can positively affect mood and stress levels. So incorporating things like probiotics. So I know that yogurt, especially like vanilla yogurt or Greek yogurt, usually is a kid favorite. So that's wonderful to include with breakfast or snacks. And then kefir and also prebiotics too. So bananas are usually a kid-friendly fruit that they like, but even onions and garlic is also a good one too. You don't have to eat these together. So probiotics is the healthy bacteria in our gut, and prebiotics is usually kind of the food that feeds that healthy bacteria, but you don't necessarily have to consume them at the same time. As long as you're incorporating them into your diet, they will work together to really strengthen the gut. So also focus on gut health when you're thinking about um, brain boosting foods for back to school. So other factors that affect brain health, so definitely those refined sugars and simple carbohydrates, so things like candies, sugared cereals, pastries, and soda. They can definitely cause those blood sugar spikes and crashes, which will lead to mood swings, irritability, and fatigue. Especially when your blood sugar dips down, you definitely kind of feel fatigued and just irritable. Usually goes along with that term hangry. So we definitely don't want that for our kids. Also, highly processed foods like fast food, unhealthy fats like saturated fats that are coming from maybe baked goods, or just other types of foods are not going to make us feel very good, or excessive sodium, which is usually linked to inflammation, which has been shown to increase risk of depression. And again, with skipping meals, so irregular eating patterns can lead to that unstable blood sugar, causing irritability, low energy, and poor concentration, which we don't want. So we definitely don't want to skip meals or snacks. Always keep that blood sugar stable, to help us feel good, especially with going back to school. All right, so these are some top brain boosting foods to keep in mind when we're thinking about meals and snacks throughout the year. So we had mentioned about bananas, dark chocolate, berries, fatty fish like salmon and tuna, nuts and seeds, oats. I know I always like oats, always make me feel really good and full. Some dark leafy greens, which are packed full of antioxidants, avocados with those healthy monounsaturated fats, eggs with which has choline, which is really important for the brain and memory. And then whole grains too, which will help you get that fiber to keep that blood sugar stable. These are some foods to think about when we are trying to help the brain and keep it healthy. All right, so just going over a little bit about these different types of food. So bananas are high in tryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin. So this helps with mood regulation. Dark chocolate is rich in flavonoids, which is linked to increased serotonin. Berries, and again, there's so much research on berries, especially blueberries and brain health, but these are packed with antioxidants, which combats that oxidative stress that we experience throughout the day with different factors, but it helps to protect our brain cells and keep them healthy. And also fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines. We know it's high in omega-3 fatty acids, which is important for the brain since it's composed of a lot of fat. Then nuts and seeds. So walnuts, almonds, chia seeds, and pumpkin seeds are high in those healthy fats. So oats, which I mentioned, our family is a big fan of oats, but they are high in fiber, helps to release energy slow, meaning the sugar in the bloodstream, so it helps to prevent those blood sugar spikes and dips that affect mood. So dark leafy greens, a lot of research on this too, which helps to support cognitive function, especially with older adults, and when their cognitive function declines. Research has shown that nutrients in dark leafy greens, meaning like spinach and kale, collard greens, and romaine lettuce, are really important for the brain. So avocados are rich in B vitamins and monounsaturated fat. So we know those are beneficial for neurotransmitters or those messengers in the brain. So those are good for brain health. Whole grains, again, provides that steady energy to the brain, helps to regulate that blood sugar. And then eggs, good source of choline, which definitely needed for memory and learning. So always good to start, if you can start the day with that or incorporate that into a snack. So I also wanted to include too, just kind of ways to use these top brain foods for back to school. So with banana, you can incorporate it into oatmeal and in a smoothie, which is pretty popular. You can make, there's a lot of different recipes on making pancakes with bananas as that being kind of the, I guess, like the sweetener in it. You can just do a whole banana. You can do banana slices with peanut butter on toast, or I know my girls sometimes just like banana slices with just a little bit of peanut butter on top so they can kind of pick it up and eat it. You can put it into a yogurt parfait or even frozen banana bites are fun. With dark chocolate, so like the little dark chocolate morsels, you can top them on waffles or pancakes, put them in a yogurt parfait. And when you top them, I don't mean like put the whole bag of dark chocolate on, just a couple will just give you enough flavor that you need. You can put them into trail mix, chocolate dip fruit. You make a lot of different recipes for energy bites. So with oats, nut butter, honey, and then some dark chocolate in there. Of course, berries again, so blueberries, raspberries, even blackberries, always good for our brain health. So we incorporate them into smoothies, put them on oatmeal, just eat them fresh, or even muffins as well, like a whole grain muffin. So with fatty fish, you can make a salmon sheet pan meal for dinner, which I have a wonderful recipe at the end of this, which is very good that I know that I make pretty regularly. You can make tuna or salmon salad on whole grain cracker or toast, which makes for a nice snack, or even salmon pasta is a nice way to incorporate those fatty fish into your everyday. And then nuts and seeds, you can incorporate them into overnight oats with some chia seeds or walnuts, nut butter sandwiches like peanut butter or almond butter. Put them into energy bites, trail mix, put them onto salads, or even grain bowls. If you like grain bowls with like a quinoa and brown rice, you can put little pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds or even slivered almonds. So a lot of different ways to use those top brain foods for the back to school season. And then with oats, excuse me, you can do a baked oatmeal. Overnight oats, I always like because you can just make them the night before and then take them out the next morning, especially if you're busy and don't have a lot of time to make something in the morning. We have oat pancakes or waffles, again, energy bites, oat muffins, or even granola is really good. You can put on top of a yogurt parfait. And then dark leafy greens. So again, spinach, kale, romaine, and collard greens, incorporate them into smoothies, wraps and sandwiches, especially if you're making lunch for your child or whoever. You can put them into egg muffins. So egg muffins meaning like in a little muffin tin, you mix together some eggs and spinach and maybe a little bit of cheese and bake them. That's always good too for meal prep. You can kind of freeze them and then microwave them as you need them throughout the week. You can put them into pasta or quesadilla, even snack dips. You can mix a little bit of spinach into hummus or Greek yogurt, maybe like a little bit of ranch powder to make for a nice after school snack. So with avocados, you incorporate them, kind of slice them up and put them into a sandwich. I always like to use it as kind of a spread to make my sandwich or wrap a little bit more creamy instead of like using mayonnaise. But you can use it as a wrap or toast spread. Chop them up and put them on a salad or grain bowl. Guacamole is a great one, especially with a whole grain tortilla chip or vegetable. You can top them on scrambled eggs. I always know I kind of make a Mexican inspired scrambled egg with scrambled eggs and bean salsa and avocado. That's a great one to do. You can even do for lunch. You can do mini avocado boats. So you just take out the pit of the avocado and you can like make a tuna salad and just put it kind of in that center where the pit was. So a lot of different ways to incorporate avocados. But I always think with wraps and sandwiches, it gives us a nice creaminess um, to that, to wrap or sandwich or toast. And then with whole grains, we have grain bowl with quinoa, you have casseroles with brown rice, a toast with some nut butter, bran muffins, wheat crackers with cheese, or even buckwheat pancakes is a really nice one. I don't know if anybody has had buckwheat pancakes before, but they definitely help. You can tell that they make you feel fuller longer with just have really good fiber in them. And then, of course, with eggs, and I'll go over some products here too, but our hard-boiled eggs, we have a Nature's Promise hard-boiled eggs that's really nice to pack for lunches or snacks. You can make a scrambled egg omelet, and even you can add some spinach, cheese, or peppers for a little bit of extra nutrients. Or you can make an egg salad with plain Greek yogurt instead of the mayonnaise, and of course, just put them on top of salads as well. So a lot of different ways to use these top-rated foods for back to school. So these are some products that I wanted to mention here. Of course, we have our brand oats. We also have chopped walnuts. And I like this Nature's Promise Alaskan sockeye salmon just because it's individually packed. You can pull it out as you need it. It's a really great for sheet pan meals. I also like this Trail Mix Omega-3. I don't know if anybody has seen this in store, but it has some sweetened dried cranberries, roasted almonds, walnuts, and pistachios in them too, which is nice. And they also have just like the bigger bag of it, and then you can also do some small bags as well if you want to pack that for your family member. And then we have Nature's Promise light tuna. So I'd mentioned about you can do you can just put that in a sandwich. You can do tuna salad, a lot of different ways to use tuna, but great source of those fats that we want. And also some more. So I'd mentioned a lot of different times about yogurt parfaits, and even like yogurt dip. But so we have a Greek non-fat yogurt that comes in vanilla or plain. So that's a wonderful addition. Also great, especially for that, if we're talking about gut health and probiotics. That's really nice to incorporate. If you want to do smoothies, and we talked a little bit about blueberries being very beneficial for brain health. These frozen blueberries, you can pull them out as you need them. Of course, you can use fresh ones too, but I always like the frozen varieties because they stay in the freezer longer. And we have chia seeds, so we know that that's a really good source of fat. We have these Nature's Promise hard cooked peeled eggs, which I had mentioned, which make a really nice snack, or if you want to put them into a lunch. And then whole wheat bread, which helps us to get those whole grains that we want for fiber and blood sugar stability. So next time you're at the store, you can definitely check out these products for brain health. And also want to mention some brain boosting snack ideas for after school because of course we want to, especially when kids come home and they have to do homework, we want them to have some brain boosting foods to help them finish and complete their whatever they have to do. So you can do a salmon or tuna salad with some whole grain crackers. I mentioned overnight oats being in the morning, but you can definitely make them as a snack when everybody comes home. So overnight oats with some milk, chopped walnuts, and nut butter and berries. I'll be mentioning a recipe off of Savory in a couple slides on overnight oats. Also raw veggies with hummus. So hummus gives us that protein that we want. You can make a variety of different trail mixes, which you can really be creative with that, get the kids involved. You can put your favorite nuts, seeds, dried fruit, and even dark chocolate pieces. And then Greek yogurt topped with granola. Of course, with granola, we want to aim for less than 8 grams of added sugar. And then you can also put berries on it, and you can be creative with that too. So when we're thinking about brain boosting foods, also we want to keep in mind about after school snacks as well to help them to keep going to complete whatever homework and whatever they need, or just to help them feel good too. All right, so these are some brain boosting recipe ideas for back to school. So this is our most recent edition of Savory. So these recipes that I'm mentioning I don't believe they are in this edition, but just wanted to show everybody this one in case you looking for it in store. But you can also view this online as well on Savory. So the first one is an avocado corn dip. So this does get 3 guiding stars. So we know that guiding stars is on recipes and products in store. So the more stars that something has, the more nutritionally beneficial it is. So this one gets 3 guiding stars. I've made this recipe multiple times, and it doesn't look like a lot of ingredients, but it definitely has a lot of flavor. So we're going to chop up some green onions, mash up some avocado, have some lime juice, some olive oil, and that plain non-fat Greek yogurt. And then you can either do fresh or frozen corn kernels. Of course, right now corn is still in season, so it would taste really, really good with some fresh and seasoned corn right now. But this does gives us 4 grams of fiber, which is really great, and even some protein as well. So this makes for a wonderful after school snack. And this is that sheet pan mustard maple salmon. This is the sheet pan salmon that I was mentioning before. So this gets 3 guiding stars. So you're just going to cut up some carrots. You can also do sweet potatoes if you want. So you're going to have kind of put olive oil or spread olive oil with that on top of the carrots, sweet potatoes, whatever that you're using. And then on top of the salmon, you're going to put on some Dijon mustard, some maple syrup, and then dill as well and bake that. But this gives us 3 grams of fiber, but 36 grams of protein. So definitely helping with that brain health, which we want. But I like this recipe too because it's just really easy to make and easy cleanup. And since we're almost getting into the fall season, I thought I would include this pumpkin spice smoothie. So this gets 3 guiding stars, and I made this recipe before, and it's very, very delicious, especially if you are already, wanting fall. This pumpkin spice smoothie is pretty nice. So this is our Nature's Promise Greek non-fat vanilla yogurt, some pure pumpkin, and even oats is in it, so it helps to give a little bit of fiber. But banana, so we know banana is one of those top brain health foods. Some ice, low-fat milk, vanilla extract, and then some pumpkin pie spice. And then you can even put some on top as well. But this gives us almost 17 grams of protein and almost 6 grams of fiber. So definitely a really nice recipe to make. And also, so this is the overnight oats that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So this is a blueberry chia overnight oat, has 10 grams of fiber in it, probably coming from a lot of that, the chia seeds, but also 18 grams of protein as well. So you can definitely make this the night before. You can even put into little mason jars. They can be little mini ones or larger jars for the adults. But this has some old-fashioned rolled oats, some chia seeds, walnuts, honey, non-fat milk, frozen blueberries. You can probably even use fresh ones if you like. So blueberries, of course, being really beneficial for brain health. Some vanilla extract and ground cinnamon as well. So a lot of good flavor. And the flavors will even combine even more when you place it in the refrigerator overnight. But this does get 2 guiding stars. So a lot of great nutritional benefits with it. And I was going to say something else and I can't remember what I was going to say. But anyways, a lot of different ingredients in this one that are beneficial for brain health. All right. So in summary, so hopefully this gives everybody a couple of product ideas, recipe ideas for the back to school season, especially if you want to benefit our, children and their brain health. But even if you're going back to college or whatnot, these foods are also applied to you too. So for back to school, we always want to keep in mind about protein and fiber, omega-3s, those healthy fats, and hydration for back to school. And it could just also think about those top brain boosting foods as well for meals and snacks. Of course, it doesn't have to be, every day or whatnot, but, we can always incorporate those, try to on a daily basis. And also want to encourage everybody to always try some new foods. I know that we can always get stuck in a rut, but on our savory recipe database, we have a lot of great different recipe ideas if you do feel like you're stuck in a rut and want to incorporate more of those brain health foods, but just don't know how to do so. Also want to keep in mind to try to meal prep at the beginning of the week. This also helps to ensure us that we're getting in the foods that we want, especially if we don't have any time and then we don't feel like it. Just helps us to get those foods throughout the day. And the last thing I want to mention too, which especially if you have a picky eater or your kids, maybe you're not eating those foods that you want them to for brain health, try to get them involved in the kitchen. This helps to teach them basic cooking skills and also provide, nutrition education for them, help them have a better understanding why certain foods are good for their body. All right, let me go ahead and look at the Q&A for some questions. All right. So someone said, okay, which is better, whole wheat bread or multigrain bread? So what I would do for that question is I would definitely look at the nutrition facts label and I would look for something that has 3 grams of fiber or more per serving. That's going to ensure that you're getting the fiber that you want. So a lot of different bread can say it's a whole wheat bread or it's a multigrain bread, but I would always look at the nutrition facts label to see how much fiber is in it because we want to aim for 3 grams or more. Okay, do you have a blueberry muffin recipe that has less sugar? I usually use whole wheat flour. So I can definitely look on the Savory website for you to see if there is a blueberry muffin recipe, or I can send that out in the follow-up email. Okay, so do nutrients increase or decrease as the fruit ripens? So that is a wonderful question. I think each fruit is a little bit different, but I'm gonna do some little bit more research on that as well. Sometimes I think with nutrients, as they ripen, sometimes the nutrients cannot maybe be as much as when they are fresh. But let me look into that a little bit more to get more accurate answer for you. And the daily recommended amount of added sugars for school-age children. Let me also get you the right information for that one as well, because I want to be accurate. But I know, especially with kids, it can be really hard to decrease added sugars in the diet just because it's, in a lot of different foods. But let me get back, or let me get research it and then get back to you on the right answer for that one. But those are all wonderful questions, especially pertaining to back to school. All right. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody joining me here today for this class today. Hopefully, give everybody some recipe inspirations for back to school and to think about brain health. Of course, brain health is very important for our kids and just us in general. So we always want to keep in mind those top brain boosting foods and incorporating those different areas that we talked about. But definitely for the next Wellbeing Connection class, definitely keep an eye out for that if you have not registered for that. And again, I appreciate everybody joining me here for class today and hope to see you again in a future class. Take care. Bye-bye.